What is happening, everybody? Thanks for checking this out. As I put up the post about how you guys wanted to get my 2021 training plan, it was split PDF video, so I thought I would do both. In the description below is a link to the video or to the PDF. Make sure you download that, as this video is going to go over kind of how I wrote the plan, what I used, and then break it down into the sections of the training plan for my 2021 early season half marathon and potential marathon, depending on what happens with in-person racing. So when I built this plan, my goals for 2021 were built off of what my 2020 goals were because there were no racing. So my goal is to run a sub 115 half and a sub 240 marathon in 2021. All of that is based upon what my PRs are, which is a 118 and a half and a 244 in the marathon. So they're realistic and attainable, which I think is important when building a plan. So when I go through and I build a plan, there's two things that I always do. Is I will always start by writing it out in paper. And so you'll see here, there is different types of, there's different types of writing on this paper for me to fill out based upon the month, based upon where we're at and how we're doing it. And I write multiple different plans and kind of look at, okay, the breakdown and where things are at. And so a lot of it is done on paper first for me to line out all of my thoughts on different things to see, okay, where does different aspects work in, where should I stop my initial fartlek steady and start building into my tempo, shorter intervals, where do I want to put my time trial and my test race, and then where do I start my main block, the threshold race pace, longer intervals. What do I use to look at it? One, I look at what I've done in the past as well as the past plans that I have written, because honestly, there's nothing that's a better predictor of how workouts do than what I've already done. And so I utilize my past experience quite a bit in how is my body going to respond and improve to certain workouts. So a lot of old workouts are incorporated, potentially tweaked a little bit, but I know my body responds and I know they're good for testing my fitness. So that's key. The other things I use is I really like inside a marathon, it's Scott Faubles' journey for the New York Marathon. It really lays out his training plan, and his coach, Ben Rosario, and their thoughts on the training plan throughout. I really like this. And then I'm a big Jack Daniels running formula believer. This is edition 2. I have edition 1 and I have edition 3. But these are kind of the books that I utilize and really follow along a lot in my training plan. So that's kind of the structure and how or where I get my information. If we're looking at structure, a lot of people build and look at workout plans as a pyramid. So you have a large base and then the peak at the top. But the way that I look at it is you'll take your triangle and I actually flip it upside down. And the reason is for me to mentally know, okay, my smaller portions of the training is on the front end, and I'm working up to building that large block before I put the taper mountain on top. And also, my way of looking at it, in order to keep that triangle on its peak, I have to have a strong running base on each side. So for me, running base is getting myself to 30-40 miles a week, easy runs without any injury, and knowing, okay, 30-40 miles a week, I'm feeling fresh, good. And that is a running base. So if you don't have that running base, I think that is so key into incorporating some type of running plan. When we look at my triangle that I have, the upside down pyramid, my bottom portion is my fartlek and steady runs. The next portion is my tempo, hills, and shorter intervals. I'll break next for a time trial or a test race. And then my next big block is my threshold, race pace work, and my longer intervals followed by my taper. And so as we dive into that, I'm gonna be looking at my computer for specific workouts, but I'm gonna go through key workouts in each of those aspects to help me get to what I want to, my goals of sub 115 half and sub 240 marathon. When we look at that first aspect, fartlek runs and steady runs, I'm still doing a lot of easy miles and my mileage is increasing. So I'm around that 40, 45 miles a week to start, building up to a higher mileage. For me, I'm gonna peak out around mid 70s or 80s in this training block, is what's in the plan. I do not build in double days, but sometimes I will just go out and, now that I have a kid, do a stroller run the dog in the evening for 2 to 4 miles, and that will increase the mileage. So I could get close to 90 some weeks, but I don't build that in because life happens. And if I build things in, I don't want to get frustrated. So that early block is a lot of easy miles, but then I'll incorporate once a week fartleks or steady runs. Steady runs to me are not quite tempo pace or marathon pace, and not quite easy runs. So somewhere in the middle of there. And what does my fartlek pace look like? Essentially, I look at fartleks as intervals without a structured time or structured pace or a structured distance. And so, for example, one of the key workouts that we have is 1 minute on, 1 minute off, or 2 minutes on, 1 minute off. And what those on times look like is just a solid turnover strictly based upon feel of what I think a good up-tempo pace will be. Typically, it's gonna land somewhere either just above marathon pace down to roughly half marathon pace, and that's kind of the range that it ends up being in, but I don't hold myself to structure. So when I look at key workouts in this, we're gonna look at the fartleks, like I said, the 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off, and then also this is kind of a fartlek run that bleeds into the next section, a fartlek ladder, 1 minute on, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then back down, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, and your rest is equal to your run. When we look at steady states, really simple. I just increase the steady state mileage on a weekly basis. So I'll warm up 1 to 2 miles, then do 4 miles steady, and then move into 5.5 miles, and then move into 6 miles. So just increasing that steady state to help the body get used to where that timing is. As we work into the tempo, the hills, and the intervals, this is where pacing becomes important. And so as I look at how I pull my pacing, as I had already mentioned, I am a big Jack Daniels running formula. He is the guy about the VDOT calculator. If you guys haven't looked at that, that is how I build all of my pacing. So you'll see my easy pace, my tempo pace, my race pace, intervals, and repetition, all built off of that calculator. And so when we look at this next section, the tempo, the hills, and the shorter intervals, I really want to dial in and focus on pacing, but also continue to build the strength. So where do I incorporate hills? I am a huge fan of hills. If anyone has seen or looked at the workout plans that I build for myself and or for other athletes that I've coached, the biggest key aspect to hills is I like to put them at the end of intervals or be a full interval workout on the hills because it helps build form, it helps build strength, and it is a quick way to get speed. So when we look at key workouts for me, like for example, one of the key workouts is we have a 5 times 1K, 5 times 400 meters, and then we have 6 times 30 seconds hill repeats. That's a great workout for me to be able to add in the speed after a workout. Another good workout for me when we're looking at these tempos is I do alternating miles. So my long runs are now going to start incorporating these tempo miles. So for example, if I have a 15-mile run on the weekend, I will do 15 miles with 3 warm-up, and then I will alternate marathon or tempo pace mile with tempo marathon pace plus 1 minute. So if I'm looking at a 6:06 marathon pace, then my next mile will be at a 7:06, and then 6:06, 7:06, and on all the way through until I hit that 2-mile cool down. And so incorporating these tempos is what's going to help me be able to get to where I'm at, and incorporating hills as I'm building this in. As I move into the next section, it's called my time trial or race test. The reason I put this in here is I like to race, so why would I not do one in the middle of my training plan? Because that's what I do for. We're all amateurs, so why not just enjoy the race process, get out there, and do the best that I can. And so in this time period, I will either, because it's 2021 and there's a pandemic going on, I don't know if it's gonna be an in-person race, but if there are in-person races, I'll do either a 10-mile or a half marathon race in this week just to test the fitness. This is not for me to go out and blaze the course and try to set a PR, but it is for me to go, okay, where do I need to make refinements? Where do I need to dial things in? Or everything is working great, continue with the plan. I do a small cutback week the week before, and then the next week is higher mileage, but all easy. And I do that simply because I really want to make sure I recover to build for the most important part of my training plan, which is the threshold, race pace, and longer interval session. As I look at this, there's two key aspects that I want to happen in this time frame. One, I want to be able to dial in my fitness, and I have two key workouts in this training block that I know if I do these workouts and I hit them, that I'm gonna be successful on race day for my goals. And two, I wanna be able to get out of these 4-week training block and feel tired, as in like I put in a lot of work, but not uncomfortable and hurt. Too many times I see people stretch too far in these types of workouts and not be able to get to the starting line healthy. And that to me is the other key aspect. So one, hit the workouts, but two, make sure I get through this training block in a healthy standpoint. So what does this types of workouts look? I'm gonna be doing a lot of marathon pacing, a lot of half marathon pacing, and hard interval efforts. And so if we were to look at the two key workouts in this section that I know if I hit these two, I'm gonna show up on race day and be able to make sure I have a solid race. So my first one is a modified thing that I actually took from this book. This is for mostly marathon, and I wanted to dial in for a half marathon. So they do a long set of mile repeats. And so I modified it and went to 10 times 1 mile at half marathon pace, and then a 5K time trial. It's gonna end up being 13.1 miles, so a full half marathon. But I want to be able to dial this in, and this is what I would consider my peak workout in the entire training plan. I know if I finish that 5K in my goal half marathon pace, that I'm going to show up well on race day. The second workout that is super important to me, I do a longer version of this in my marathon training, is 2 times of 4 miles at marathon pace, 1 mile at half marathon pace. And the in-between is 800 meters easy. If I am able to put that last mile together at half marathon pace, I again know this is a strong workout for me to be able to gauge how I'm going to do on race day. Again, biggest portion of the training block, highest mileage, so I'll be hitting my peak mileage in this week, but it is super important to maintain the body, get good nutrition, and be able to come out of this feeling like your body is ready to race. Once I've now leveled out, so if you see you have your running base holding up this big triangle that I've put together, next you put the mountain on top, which is your taper. I communicate this to myself, I communicate this to my athletes. Taper does not mean to take time off, it means to take time to dial things in. So as my distance continues to decrease, my intensity is picking up to make sure that I am dialed in. It is a lot of decreasing of miles, but there is still repetitions and there is still some speed built into this. So 2 of my key workouts that I do in this training plan is a longer duration 400 meters. So anywhere between 10 and 12 400 meters at a interval pace, but there's longer rest. So I'm taking 1.5 to 2 minutes rest in this workout just to make sure I'm not over fatiguing my body. And this is further out from races, so closer to 2.5 weeks. And then the last portion of my long run, which is a shorter long run, is I do 2 times 2 miles at half marathon pace. And to me, that is really where I dial things in and get ready for race day. And then the last week before is a lot of easy miles and some striders to get myself ready for my race. So again, that is just some details on how I build it out. Feel free to reach out, text, or send me a message, comment below. Let me know if this training plan is something you would utilize, some training or some workouts that you would take. If you need anything, reach out. I look forward to hearing how you're doing. Hopefully races happen in 2021 and look forward to seeing you guys on the starting line. Thanks, have a great day.